Okay guys, so today I'm going to talk to you really quickly, well, maybe a little bit longer, about your base setup, because I sold the kit, sent it out, and put the build video up, but I didn't really talk about what you should be doing to set it up, where you should start, good stuff like that, and the components you should use. Well, yeah, so let's get into it and probably start with the most important part, tires. Okay, so so far I've done testing on carpet with foam tires and RCP with rubber tires. And the rubber tires I was using was PN5 PN5 radial rear and a PN15 front. Generally with this car, it handled that well. I had some setup issues trying to learn how to run this car for the first time on RCP, but overall worked out pretty well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But let's start with the foam tires. So these are my own tires, and just running a very soft compound, same front and rear compound too. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna run a compound. I suggest running same front and rear because you want that maximum steering, and I found that if you even run a harder front compound, it's not going to stop it from flipping if you don't have glue. So if you're gluing it, you might as well get more steering, right? And typically, you get away with that same compound or maybe a little bit harder. So if you run like X-Powerrc tires, I wouldn't recommend. They're very soft in the front because I think they're very soft. Might even be a little too soft for the front. You probably get away with running a very soft in the rear and a soft in the front. And I would also recommend using wide front tires, so you'll actually see this front tire. This is really a rear rim, so it's a rear rim, and so it's 10 millimeters wide, that front tire, and you'll see these look a little wider because I have a little bit hanging off the side here, so not a big deal. That's just for a little more width because we're gonna run a fresh layout next week. These are 25 millimeters diameter. Typically, race trim, I'd start with a 24.5. Just I want to try something new with a little taller rears. Yeah, 24.5 in the rear, and I'd start with a 23 in the front. Maybe a 23.25, but maybe even a 23.5 to 7.5 if you're really looking to get that longevity of the tire wear. But if you're gonna run them for one race, run them 23. And you'll see glue sidewall kind of stiff and don't really go over the edge. You want to have just a wall. You don't want to have a rounded edge of glue onto your surface patch, your contact surface, your contact patch. Sorry, excuse me. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the front end. So that's just a little thing on tires about. No, I'll talk about that later. Here's the front end. Here's a standard 03 front end. As you can see, I'm running these purple springs. These are PN low down springs. I'm gonna throw the link up on the website. The link on the parts of the site. I didn't have that because I recently acquired these and just never really thought about putting it up. But now I'm thinking about it, so I'll do that. Tomic Knuckles. These are the F.S 0 degree for how much camber. This is the X-Powerrc top bar. I have that on the parts link. And I'd suggest running either an X-Powerrc or a reflex top bar, just because it's easy use for the camber. If you really want, run a Tomic or PN top bar and just do your camber from your knuckles. But then you really got to buy 3 sets of knuckles, and these are not cheap. Or you want to run your camber from your arms, you got to buy 3 sets of arms, so it's a little cheaper, but not that much. And you're not saving any money because you spend 35 bucks on a tower. Either way, really. 35 versus maybe 20, 25, so you save 10 bucks, but you get all 3 camera adjustments. So spending your money wisely, that's what I'd recommend, and that's probably the best way to do it with the X-Powerrc reflex. If you don't have the reflex, and they don't really have them available anymore, so your option is the X-Powerrc, so go with that. These are some reflex XL or extra long kingpins. That's why I just call them XLs. I don't know if that's the real name, what they call them. That's just what I like to call them. You can run these if you have them. They don't make them anymore, so you have to run the PN XLs. They're on the parts list website. They're the CC extra long. So that's the same one. They're the same. They're really just the same. It's just what I had and what you guys either have or need to get. Running the stock upper arms. I have some Atomic Governed ones coming in the mail, and I've test fitted some PM ones, and the PMs work. You got to come down like I did here, except I'm working on something, so in the short future maybe I'll release a part that allows you to run your spring on the bottom like over here on your standard 03, but you know, I don't really want to, because that's not the way you run your suspension. That's sloppy, and just it's gonna lead to issues and people having the wrong setup. So I don't think I will. So just cut your arms, or if you don't want to, buy some Atomic ones off EGR to like $7. So while you're at it, buy yourself those knuckles and maybe an ESC. If you guys are gonna do brushless, I'd suggest the Atomic ESC. Speaking of ESC, what I'm running is a Novak Spy. It's a micro ESC. It was pretty popular back in the day for micro racing. I had it for an 18 scale. Just lying around, so that's what I used. I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to find one and buy it, because they don't make them anymore. So if you don't have it, don't get it. Just use a Kyosho board, or go brushless, or get a Tekken B1R. I have somebody, a racer I know, who purchased a chassis, who's running that, so that will work. Receiver, Google app, standard ASF receiver. You can run, you could run a Spectrum, because I actually did test fit it. Spectrum works fine with the KL module, and then you don't have to switch your leads over. You see here, I had to switch the servo leads over to JST. I mentioned in a previous video, maybe I didn't, I don't know. If you go on Hobby King when you buy a servo, which is this DS919, it's Corona DS919, which is the one I'd recommend. It's $8. Get 2 or 3 of them like I did. That way, you have a spare on hand, you have parts, you can experiment different setups. And say, example for me, I have 2 of them, so I'm going to be putting a brushless unit on one of them. So that way, I just swap the servo out, and I don't have to worry about changing ESCs like that. That's pretty straightforward for the electronics. This is open to you. That's the benefit of this chassis compared to anything else. Run whatever you want. I'm not saying run one thing over the other, because everybody has their preference. Everybody's going to go their own way. So that's just what I'm running. Currently in the back of it, we got a 33 turn can, because the new PN cans are crap. They really just have no type of torque. I don't know if they went cheap on the magnets or whatever, but I bought a 32 not too long ago, and I just threw the can away because that's how bad it was. If you have one of those older 33 cans with those Neo magnets, I have the gold ones in there, I think, because I had those lying around, put them in there. That's what you want to run, and I want to say it's a 43 turn. If they make 43, yeah, it's a 43 or it's a 39 in the 33 can. So not too crazy. Keep in mind you're running a 7.4 volt LiPo, so it's gonna be fast. So don't worry about throwing maybe a 50 turn in there if you're just starting out, or not. Obviously, if you bought the chassis, you're not starting out, but if you're not used to that speed, throw a 50 turn or even a 70 turn in the back of it. Actually, you know what? Probably start with one of those Atomic round cans, like the yellow one. I think that probably be the best place to start, because those are smooth. Those aren't torquey. They have torque, but they're not like 33 turn torque. So those are smooth, easy to work with, and your top end's good. They're consistent, reliable, and I like the feel of them. I actually have new brushes in the mail for those, so I'll be trying that out in this soon. I will be switching to an Atomic ESC and running a PN 7500 kV motor. If you're gonna run brushless, start with 7500. Don't go crazy. Like I said, this is LiPo. You go to a 9000, you're gonna have all kinds of top end that you're not gonna be able to use, and no kind of torque at the bottom where you need it. So keep that in mind. This is the PN front end. Oh, forgot to mention, on your standard front end and your PN front end, I almost exclusively run 2 degrees camber. So basically, you set your top bar to 2 degrees, or if you're running at the arms, set your arms to 2 degrees, or if you're running at the changing it at the knuckles, set your knuckle to 2 degrees. And basically, if you want more camber, put a shim on between the bottom of the upper A arm and the top of the knuckle, and that's going to give you more camber gain and a little more static camber, but you'll notice that camber gain, and I'll give you that more steering. I don't usually go too far from 2 because that's where the wear rate is, especially with these 23s and foams. 23 diameter. That's where you want to stick with 2 degrees. And you go less, you go to 1, you're gonna push for a little bit, and it's, I mean, you could run that. That's track dependent, test and see what works for you. Just I stick with 2, and that's about it. At the rear, you're gonna notice I'm running a Kyosho sock. You're not gonna believe what I'm running for oil in it. It's 3,000 diff fluid. That's because I lost the O-ring that goes in there, so it leaks like crazy unless I run 3,000 or higher. So it feels like 550, but it's 3,000. So run 550. Don't be stupid, like me. At the side, we're running these PN low profile tri-shock springs, and basically to set your preload. So if you don't want to use those drip screws, basically you're gonna twist your pod. You're gonna articulate your pod all the way to the left, like so, all the way to one way, and then you're gonna adjust your nut so that it just touches the spring. So basically, let's see if I do this one hand. Nope, that's not gonna happen. So oh crap. Let's do over here. I'm articulating the pod, and you see my spring is still touching that silver collet, but just barely. See, just barely. That's how you want to do it. Both sides, just barely. Trying to set them equal in length is never gonna work because everything's always a little bit different. Just do it like that, and I guarantee you're gonna have a tweak-free pod. But you want to check that every now and then because you get in a big crash or you accidentally brush up against it. You could change it. You could also run your side springs below. I'm gonna do a video on that when I get the right parts to do that. Then for your AR, I'd stick with, these are some greens. These are the V1 springs. These are greens. They're very close to like a blue now, what you consider blue. I'd stick with a blue. A blue or teal, blue, teal, or bronze. I'd stick with for the V1, for the V3, excuse me. For the V2, I'd stick with a purple. That's the light purple. It's not the dark purple. For the V2, I'd go purple or lighter. Purple or softer. So maybe I try a V2 green, or maybe a V1 purple. But that's it, really. V1 purple, V2 purple, really. V2 green maybe, and V3 I'd do anything from bronze to teal. I wouldn't really go to yellow. This front end, typically with this car, I found it likes a little bit of softer front end. I don't know why. It seems to like it. These are these purple PN low profile front end springs, purple. So they're like in the middle of the range, and they're a little bit softer. For that's what I run for carpet foam. If you're gonna run RCP, run a little stiffer in the front. For RCP, you're gonna want to run probably a white. These low profile standard 03 front suspension springs. I run a white with pretty good success. Actually, you know what? Excuse me. I went back to the purple, and that was more effective. Yeah, either a white or a purple though. That's what felt pretty good. And for the RCP, run a 5 rear and probably 15 in front, and just tweak the setup so that I had problems when I first tried this car on RCP. I had very limited track time, and a 5 and a 15. And you got to play around with the settings, and you should be able to get that to go pretty well with RCP rubber. Just don't glue the front tires like I did, because once you figure out your setup, then you're gonna regret it. Because maybe at the very beginning you're gonna feel like maybe you want to glue those sidewalls because it's gonna want to flip or oversteer. But when you figure the setup out, actually you'll notice it has way more rear grip than than the 03. So keep that in mind. And that just about covers it. Talk a little bit. So here you go. You see a little bit of Ackerman here. Just a tiniest bit because I felt like the PN knuckles didn't really give enough. They didn't give the right angle, so I just adjusted it till I felt like it gave pretty dead zero. So I put 3.2 millimeter spaces in there. In between, if you see here, in between there you go, the arm and the servo linkage thing, whatever. The battery I'm running, X-Powerrc IDT/IMT battery. Can't go wrong with these. 18 bucks, you know, kind of pricey, but you know, you get what you pay for in this sense. I'm working on how to fit. This is going to be the only battery that fits with the kits I shipped out. If you want to drill new holes and cut up your servo, then you can kind of shoehorn in a Turnigy Nanotech 750 1S battery stacked on top of one on top of the other. But you're gonna raise your ride height. You're gonna put a little more weight at the rear. Not raise your ride height. Excuse me. You're gonna raise your center of gravity. Oh, it's late. Sorry, guys. You're gonna raise your center of gravity. You're gonna put that weight out a little more to the edges, and it's gonna be less centralized. So you know, I'd recommend this. Go for it if you want to run those, but you're gonna have to drill your chassis holes, and that's really just gonna require drilling them out here. This is something I had to do on my own. I didn't want to do these on the kits I sent out because I couldn't guarantee perfect fitment, and also the problem with the fitting the servo. As you can see, the servo covers up those holes. You'd have to cut up your servo, so that would not be pretty. Okay, that just about covers it. If you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, everything you need in the part. Oh, before I forget, actually, excuse me. Before I forget, start with a 10K, 10,000 diff fluid. It's this associated, just standard gear diff oil for a 10 scale. 10K in the back. I read a lot of 10 scale information. Did a lot of testing of my own. Started with 3K, tried a 15 to 17K. Came to the conclusion you want to start with a 10K. The thicker you go, okay, in theory you're going to have more steering, but what I found is after 10K, when you go thicker, it's too thick. You're not getting enough rotation, and your rear end's going to feel sluggish and actually want to slide on you. So you're going to lose steering because it's going to react real slow, and you're also going to lose, but you're also going to get that slippery rear end. So that's a trade-off when you go to stiffer oil, lighter oil. When you go lighter oil, it's going to make your car want to react real quick, but obviously if you go too soft, you're going to, A, your car's going to over-rotate, and B, is going to have too much grip, it's going to push. So it's going to do two things that kind of conflict with each other. That's the weird thing with this oil. The two characteristics it changes both conflict with each other, but they happen at different parts of the turn, because really the part of the oil where if you go stiffer, it makes it want to not enough rotation. That really affects in the late part of the turn, in the middle turn to exit, and then but it gives you that more steering on it coming out because the rear end sliding. And if you go softer, it's going to give you that rotation and more reactiveness. So your initial part of the turn, you can say, "Oh, car feels good," but then you're going to feel the middle of the exit turn is pushing, so you're not going to be able to follow that tight line in those U-turns. So that's that. Happy building. For those of you who pre-ordered, when you get your car finished, send me some pics. I'll put it up on the website. I'd be happy to do so, and give me your feedback. I'm always looking to improve. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Alright, bye. Thanks.